Hey, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, Gimbal, Tokenomics, Allocation Zero team, and anybody else who's checking out this video. Thank you for everything you've done so far in the Gimbal Tokenomics working groups. It's incredible to see people start taking action, to start thinking about what you can build and what we're all doing together here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Many more conversations to come. What I'll say personally is that, dang, I've been so inspired to just keep building because I see what else is going on around here. And I hope that some of the work I want to share with you today helps you move forward and get some ideas for what to do next. So quick video here. There's code at GitLab. There's two different repos here, one for Plutus and one for our front end. There's an initial deployment that we're still working on right now. As soon as I finish recording this video, I'm going to meet up with the with the Plutus PBL team and anybody else who wants to show up as we continue to deploy this DApp to mainnet. So more on that to come, and if I'll share a recording for that video. So if you want a deeper dive, you can check that out. The purpose of this video is to give you a high-level view of this Gimbal, Bounty, Treasury, and Escrow system. So what is it? And yes, PR team, if you have a better name for this, let's let's figure out what to call it. But for now, right, I'm just naming it what it is. Before we talk about how it works, two definitions. There's two roles to interact with this DApp. There's an issuer who's responsible for locking some tokens in a treasury and signing off when bounties are complete. And then there's a contributor, anyone who says, hey, I want to do this thing. They can commit to completing a bounty and they receive some tokens upon completion. It consists of a pair of Plutus contracts, one for a treasury and one for a bounty escrow, and a web-based front end that allows, one, users to lock some tokens in a treasury, two, issuers to create bounty listings that, if committed to, will draw tokens from a treasury. It allows contributors to look at that list of bounties and say, hey, I want to do that thing, where they commit to completing a bounty if they hold some access token. This is a key idea, more on that in a moment. And issuers finally can say, yep, that bounty is done. They can approve distribution and unlock funds for distribution to the contributor. Okay, so a lot of language there. Often it's going to be better to look at pictures, so that's what we're going to do in just a moment. Just a little bit of motivation here. The reason I built this is that we're working on escrow contracts in Plutus PBL, and as you know, both somebody who's starting to teach that course and also learning, I wanted to build a real use case, and this is going to help us complete some other use cases as well, now that we've got it working. And I wanted to provide context for our work in the Allocation Zero technical working group, for the Allocation Zero project-based learning working group, and maybe for yours if any of these ideas are interesting. And indeed, that's really my goal here. I'm hoping to inspire you to have some ideas. So as I show you what this is, I really do hope that you'll start to have some ideas, and I want to hear what those are, and I want to help you build your implementation of this. So pictures, as promised, okay? Let's just take a look at a high level about what this thing is so we can get an idea of it. At a very high level, you've got issuers who hold some funds, can deposit into some treasury contract. Funds are then unlocked from that treasury contract and held in a bounty escrow, where they're finally unlocked and sent to contributors. So these arrows each represent transactions that are going to happen. All right, let's go a little deeper than this just to understand it better. Okay, so an issuer is going to hold some funds. Maybe in my case, it's some ADA and a bunch of Gimbals. I can lock ADA and those Gimbals in the treasury contract. Now, me as the issuer, when these funds are locked, that's identified. So I'm going to be the only person who at the other end is able to unlock these funds. The next transaction, there's an arrow here, but really it's the contributor who makes a triggering transaction that draws from the Treasury contract and from the contributor's wallet to lock an individual UTXO at the bounty escrow. Okay, so the contributor must have, this access token. Okay, this is a token that for now I mint, but there's many other ways to think about this. Whatever the case, if a contributor holds an access token, the Plutus contract is going to allow them to unlock funds from the Treasury and deposit a portion of those funds at the bounty escrow, where one UTXO will sit locked for each individual bounty commitment. All right, and that UTXO, it's going to hold some whatever tokens are in the Treasury, ADA and otherwise, and it's going to hold the contributor's access token until the third transaction happens, which is where the issuer says, yeah, that work is done, and they say, okay, send these Treasury tokens and the contributor's access token back to that contributor, where now the contributor will hold the token again, and they can choose to commit to the next task. This is how it works. I'm certain you have questions, but I wanted to give you this high-level overview. Now that I've gone into a little bit of detail here, let's start to abstract this picture a little bit. At a high level, this is what's happening. We have some pool of funds that comes from somewhere, and maybe it consists of ADA, and maybe it consists of other tokens. I shouldn't say maybe. It has to have ADA for now, right? Because it's on Cardano. So we have to have at least some ADA locked there in the Treasury. Then a series of commitments are made to doing work, to completing tasks or bounties that use these funds to get stuff done. All right, and so each of these UTXOs is going to have the tokens from the Treasury, the access token, like I showed before, and it could have additional tokens. We could start thinking about credentials in this context, right? If somebody does some work, maybe we can give them a higher level of access token that shows, hey, you've done this level of bounty, and now that you've done that, you're ready for the next. This is where we can be really creative. This is where we can play with this tool. I just want to have it out there, right? So let's get rid of the words. At a even more abstract level, we've got pools of funds yielding tasks, okay? And what can these be? They can be all sorts of things. Let's look at it in the context of project-based learning. Instead of having some treasury that, is for getting specific tasks done, what if we have a treasury for an individual project-based learning module that maybe it doesn't have to hold too much ADA, just the minimum, but maybe more importantly, it holds some credentials, right? Some token that says, hey, you learned this thing. Then anybody who wants to onboard to Gimbal Labs or onboard into one of our PBL programs can do the first module, can make and let me say the order more correctly. They can make a commitment to doing something, in this case, learning something. And when they finish somehow, they can get, they're going to get the expertise, they're going to get the experience, and they can get some token credential to say, yeah, you did that thing. And if we agree that this path can happen from some pool to some commitment to some outcome, well, now we could start to chain these together. We can say, look, here's the first project, commit to it, get some access that gives you access to the second project, commit to that one, get some outcome, and so on and so forth. And these can be projects, these can be working group treasuries, these can be anywhere where we need a pool of tokens to either incentivize achievement, right, getting stuff done financially, or to give access through a sequence of projects. So this, when I think about project-based learning, one of the things I want to do is take the raw material of what we've done in Plutus PBL so far and in the Gimbal tokenomics so far, and start to package both of these into very clear sequential curriculums that consist of a series of projects. So this picture I'm showing you right here on the screen is what I imagine the structure of a PBL curriculum will look like. And now we've got to flesh out the content. The wonderful thing is, the privilege I have sitting in front of me is we've done so much over the last few months that there's such incredible material for us to draw on as we create the next iterations of Plutus PBL and of tokenomics PBL. So that's where I'm headed. I want to share with you some open questions that might get you thinking in the context of whatever working groups you're a part of. I don't have all the answers about tokenomics and business models. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of things I'm excited to talk about. And I'm sorry that I haven't been able to make it to the early tokenomics and Treasury meetings yet. But I'm excited to hear what y'all are thinking about, and I hope that some of these ideas can be helpful. The way I see it, I think we can be the first to market with a bounty system on Cardano. And we can do it in a way that's different from similar Web 2 projects, or even from, for example, Gitcoin on Ethereum. If we do this by modeling a distributed and decentralized approach. We could share open code that anyone can implement, but might want our help deploying. We can demonstrate the viability and value of decentralized systems. One of the things I've learned as we build Dandelion at Gimbal Labs is that a lot of people don't understand the need for it. Those who do, love it. But what we really want to show is you can take these components and not rely on one kind of centralized implementation of something, and you can run an instance. What's interesting about this from a business model perspective is, with a token, we have a different way to think about value creation and capture. Yeah, we're giving away code for free, and yeah, we're encouraging others to use it to build out their own treasury and bounty system. And the default in our code is to use the Gimbal token for this. And we're building a network of people who are using the Gimbal token for different things. So anybody who wants to initially spin up a treasury and start playing with it, the Gimbal is a great option that allows people to play, to experiment, to do everything we are doing. And then even to take some of the structures from our A0 work, right, of setting goals, of creating groups, of defining values. And then they can use this technical tool under the hood of that to then start distributing tokens accordingly. So questions for you at the bottom. If we do make this free and open source like I'm describing here, how do we see that enabling movement or value creation for the Gimbal token? And if we prove out this use case, if I help a few different working groups create an implementation of this system, I would love for that to be prototyping a business-to-business solution where we can help other groups implement their treasury and escrow system. So yeah, I have a lot more to say about those two things, but I just wanted to put those questions in your mind, and we can come back to those. My next steps are to continue on these lines. Okay, so from a technical perspective, both in the context of Plutus project-based learning and the A0 technical working group, I'm starting the work today of sharing how this DApp works. I'm going to dog food it, right? I'm going to use the DApp to share tasks, to further develop the DApp. And I want to help I want to prepare to help other working groups to deploy this, right? So this is me making sure this thing is documented and actually works, continuing to refine the contracts. There's a few things I want to do now that we have an MVP before other working groups start to use this. And I want to help other people prepare to help with deployment, right? So to really start distributing the load here, building up the expertise of anybody who wants to take it. In the context of the project-based learning working group, with this model in my mind, I'm shifting my focus towards building the next iterations of Plutus and tokenomics PBL, and hopefully informing more generally the pathways from allocation 0 to allocation 1. And so the last thing I have, I just created a new Miro board here, and I'll share the link to this. This is just a placeholder board. It says Gimbal token allocation 0 to allocation 1. And the guiding question is, how will we know that we're ready to launch allocation 1 of the Gimbal token? I hope you've probably had a few ideas about this. I know that I have, and I'd like to just create this shared space right here to start taking notes. So I just made a box for each of our working groups, and for any group you're part of, just grab a sticky note. So like PBL, I can write, we need a clear TPBL A1 curriculum, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm working on next, and I won't feel prepared at all to do allocation 1 until this is done. So maybe there's some stuff like that for you, but maybe there's just other higher level things, right? And this is where we all have control over the groups that we're contributing to by contributing, but maybe there are things you want to ask of other groups. So, you know, what do you think needs to be true? And maybe you want to make suggestions to other groups, that's fine. We'll start taking notes here. And this will give us raw material for when we next meet to start looking ahead from the A0 work we've been doing to the A1 work. All right, I hope this video wasn't too long. Very excited to be building here and very excited to share this with all of you. Please, 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 whatever questions you've got, bring them, and here's to it. See you out there.